Hello, everyone. Welcome to your old pals, Stevie Stewart here, the internet's most obscure music discusser. I'm here today with another episode of AvA, the album versus album podcast, where I sit down either by myself or with a guest and talk about which album fits under a niche umbrella best. It's been a couple of weeks. I've been going through the world just like you have. And I have a special guest with me, returning into the hot seat. It's a longtime collaborator, good old chum of the channel. It's a good old pal. We're going to be talking about music. It's my friend, Mark, from Fully Involved. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks. And just going through that is just, it's so inspiring. Podcasters, they're just like us.
I am like you in the world as it's burning. Although in your case, literally, are you safe?
Yeah.
Safe?
So for those that don't know, I know I sound far too neurotic to be from Southern California, but it's true, believe it or not. I don't get it either. But yeah, a couple San Diego friends closer to the border have posted their Instagram stories of their orange skies, and then the people north of me have posted about their gender reveal party fires. But it's okay because now they know the genitalia of the baby, which will be rigid and always set in stone forever.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Yes, and so I'm just kind of in the middle here, just being like, you guys have fun with that. and that's where I'm at now. I mean, it's kind of getting back down into the 70s.
Good.
Over the course of this week, so fingy crossed, knocking on everything wood in this room, from the coaster my diet ginger beer is on to the bookcase, Not the bookcase where the records are. That's kind of far away from the mic. But in spirit, I'm knocking on that wood too.
Yeah. It's a hell of a year to be alive, but I'm glad that you're okay and you can sit down and talk about things with me. For those who aren't aware of how this show works, usually I have two albums up for discussion that fall under a really weirdly niche umbrella that I'm casting them under because they fit. And we're going to break down which we think is more. We got a little bit of a format change this week. And it'll be an interesting... Yeah, it'll be an interesting discussion as to how this goes down. But we'll get to that when we get to that.
But before we jump into this episode, we need to address any threads left from the last episode, as is customary to what we always do.
So the episode was on which overshadowed debut... Or which... What was it? Which overshadowed independent debut is more underrated? And that was Denzel's Nostalgic 64 and Kendrick's Section 80.
I haven't heard either yet.
Okay, so we can just have the cut of me editing in the no comments that were addressed in that episode.
I know I'm fake Kendrick. Weirdly enough, a better match, a more interesting matchup for that, because they came out in the same timeline, might be Section 80 versus ex-military.
Well, and the reason why I threw Kendrick in there, and I may cut in randomly with you saying that, with me. This will be a weirdly edited episode. But
don't you YouTube.
The reason
me.
why I picked the reason why I picked Denzel and Kendrick, for those who didn't listen to that episode, which if you haven't, you should. It's a good time. I did it with my buddy Tyler. Kendrick and Denzel have weirdly similar career trajectories. Nostalgic 64 and Section 80 both have their own social commentary, but in a very vibey sort of way. Their next album, which is the one that broke them out, in Denzel's case, Imperial, and Kendrick's case, Good Kid, are banger-centric records. And then they did the more lofty, ambitious project with Taboo and T-Pab. And then they did the more influenced with contemporary shit. Exactly. With Zoo and Damn. So I wanted to talk about them in that regard. And yeah, it was an interesting time.
Even linguistically, like Taboo to T-Pab, Zoo, you go to the one syllable. It's like, dang.
It's true.
Makes you think.
They have Well, and like it really does. Are they the same person?
Damn.
Have you ever seen Kendrick Lamar?
Like, have you ever seen Kendrick Lamar and Denzel Curry in the same room? Let's get Kendrick on a Rage cover right now and see how it goes over.
What song by Rage do you think Kendrick should do? Because I actually have one in mind that I think he would do a really good job with.
Maybe
mine was a single, but not a big one.
Maybe the cover of Tom Joad.
So I was thinking Sleep Now in the Fire.
Okay.
I think he could really do that chorus justice while having the more laid back flow in the verses.
We gotta do it a whole other episode. What Rage Against the Machine song which of these two Rage Against the Machine songs would be the best for Kendrick Lamar to cover? Why is this 2 hours?
Yeah, why are they talking so much about these songs? What happens? And then by the end, we're just talking about something completely different. But no, so okay.
Does Kendrick even like Rage? Has he even talked about them in an interview or like?
I'm sure he does to a degree. I mean,
I know. That's just the inner monologue of the person listening. You know.
Has he really? What is Kendrick's opinion on Zach De La Rocha's politics?
What is he
the same? I don't think that would work.
What does he think of the Prophets of Rage album?
He probably thinks it sucks, just like everybody else, except for Chuck D. But no, any comments, the no comments that I got are gonna be inserted here. Now that you've heard the no comments, we're gonna jump into today's episode, which is a lovely topic that I've decided to thrust upon good old Mark, and it is involving around a genre that is both very popular on the internet and very polarizing at the same time, and honestly also features a group that we've discussed before and another group that Mark himself got me into. So we're gonna be talking about
that part. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you sent me them performing on what's his name show, and I was like, oh my god, this song slaps. Yeah, and that song was my song of the decade.
I never thought I'd say this in the last couple years, but thank you, James Corden.
Yeah, thank you, James Corden, for clipping.
In a post-emoji movie world, it feels weird to say.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, so what we're going to be talking about are the subject for today is which noise rap label debut is the most accessible. And when approaching Mark with this topic, he went above and beyond on reinventing the wheel in album comparison podcast format. Mark, I'm going to let you just throttle into this.
I mean, listen, here's the thing. We got to give a little context here. So the last other time we talked about Death Grips on a program together, it was on my own program, well, the one that we co-hosted for a period of time, the Mad Sounds podcast.
Podcast that changed my life.
True. The thing is, like, you could be honest about that, but also,
for sure.
But anyway, so around the time the Bottomless Pit dropped, we did an episode where I, as the plebe, obviously, as you could probably guess, if you've heard any past stuff that either of us has done, just comparatively, I as the plebe to the genre, decided to listen through most of Death Grips' discography for the first time. I binged it all over a period of a few days. It was a very weird time. And I just... It's been a weird week listening to Death Grips.
That's good.
Sorry, that song's just been coming up a lot in my life recently. Anyway.
Hey.
Yes, but
okay.
Kendrick would sound awesome rapping that one. I'm just saying.
You definitely would.
Oh, it's the end of last week.
Notice the moon because I can. They got the blue men and babies and maybe did the wrong thing.
I can't help it if you think funny when you're mad. Try hard and smile will feel bad.
The kind of gotta last at the funeral. Can't understand what I mean, we soon will.
I have a tendency to do my name immediately.
Well, so here's the thing: when he do it section 80, which is like super nasally, or would he do it with like the post TPAP where it's a little more lower in his register, where he's really tapping into his.
I think that once you get into there will inevitably be one part where he gets into like the second verse of Swimming Pool Style, where it'll be chickadee chickadee China, the Chinese chicken. You have a drumstick and your brain starts ticking.
Yeah. Watching X-Files with the lights on. It's just like he adds the harmonies during that part.
No, but the Dollar Maison echoes would be like, the Dollar Maison!
He just throws in his ad-libs that he just goes to.
And it's all an analogy for God for some reason.
Oh, yeah. Because that's Kendrick's MO.
Yes. Okay, but it's been a long time since we were on subject.
Yeah. Death Grips.
So on this episode, you were the person that actually knew what they were talking about, and I ranked Fashion Week as their third best album, which I still agree with. Well, actually, no, I still don't agree with, because since then, Year of the Snitch came out, and I would put that in that spot, definitely now. But basically, we went down my own personal ranking of Death Grip's discography as the newcomer plebeian, and you reacted to it and gave me some very weird, you know?
Because I try to not, dog anybody for their opinion, but like you had some weird takes in there, my guy.
I'm very weird. I'm very weird. I stand by them, but yeah. But in that top
that's
three,
what makes you Mark.
But listen, in that top three, right now I'm pretty confident. I got number 3, Year of the Snitch. Number 1, Jenny Death When, Jenny Death Now, and number 2.
The Money Store, the one that we're talking about today. We're talking about Death Grips' Epic the Label debut, The Money Store versus Clipping, industrial sort of noise rap juggernauts now.
Side project of Hamilton's Own.
Yeah, side project of Jefferson Starship.
I got into David through Clipping first, and I was just able to flex that so hard these last few years.
No, I mean, especially since he's been all over the map. Blind Spotting, incredible film. Watch that if you haven't. Super important even now. But Clipping, they debuted on Sub Pop with self-titled. I'm going to put that in heavy quotes. Because it's
I feel weird
because
the vowels. You just know that on every interview in that press run for that album, the interviewer started out with like, so for this new album, clip, is it self-titled? How do you guys say it?
I don't understand noise rap culture.
You guys, you sure say a lot of words on these things.
It's really noisy. I can't wear headphones. It hurts my ears.
R.I.P. headphone users, am I right?
Can I get an F in the chat for the headphone users?
No, I mean, I think that guy would have been... When did F in the chat become a thing? This will be our next tangent.
F in
because it's become a very recurring... It's been a part of my vocabulary the last, maybe 2 years or so.
2014. It came out in 2014, which is when Clipping came out.
Put it on the board.
It came from, for those who don't know what F in the chat stems from, it's from a Call of Duty game. There was a QuickTime event where a soldier died and you had to push F to pay respects, to do the 21-gun salute. You had to push a key for that to happen. And it became a meme to just F in the chat anytime anybody fucks up. That's all. Grandpa memes here!
Or just like anytime anything bad happens ever in a Discord server. That's just how I use it now.
No, and that's pretty much. I mean, it's got very common usage now. It's in the zeitgeist in a very forefront sort of way. But it stems from a shitty game design flaw that was all about immersion and just broke it so erroneously.
Yeah, you gamers always have the best memes. They're so epic.
We're a cancerous culture.
And speaking of Epic Records
had saw light
a little
in
band
noise rap musics, of California's own Death Grips. Which
I hope they're doing okay.
Brought them. Oh, yeah, Death Grips, yeah. I just want to know what they're up to. I think they're done personally.
They stay
but that's
quiet.
a story for.
I mean, they literally broke up in 2013 because of to get off the Nine Inch Nails tour, and then reunited the next year, and then played shows and then scheduled shows at like South by Southwest where they just blew them off and left like a sticky note on the stage or something like that. So you can't really predict anything with these guys, is what I'm saying. They're just dicks about it.
Yeah, they are the internet's Joker meme.
Truly,
they're just chaos incarnate.
We live in a Death Grips album.
But which one? Which one is 2020?
Okay, I feel like this is
Bottomless
the one.
pit.
I feel like this is the one time when I can decide that Fashion Week would be ideal. You would want to live in Fashion Week out of all the Death Grips albums. That sounds pleasant.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind living in ex-military if we're counting that, because it has
Spread Eagle across the block.
Dude, it is some raw fucking music right there.
Do you want a do you want a raw life?
Yes, with how it can be. Yes.
Johnny, are you the bad boy of podcasting right now?
Oh, for sure. This is why I don't make podcasts often. No, I think Fashion Week, honestly, for how I don't want to say safe, how safe it is in the Death Grips catalog. I feel it'd be the place.
Yeah, it is weirdly one of their more accessible ones, which is maybe why this plebe put it in the top 4 now.
But that's a conversation for another day involving accessibility between those two. Do you think the accessibility of the Money Store is what put it so high for you?
Oh, absolutely, because that's where a lot of the biggest bangers are. And again, we'll get into that when we talk about the criteria. The criteria collection.
Well, Mark's Criteria collection, featuring such great attributes as
normie ins, relatable content, appeal to rap fans, appeal to other music fans. So, okay, now we should probably give the context for this. So we were talking as we were scheduling this about like, yeah, I'm gonna make some notes, and then as I was re-listening to these records, I realized that accessibility can be determined by so many things. So I decided that I'm gonna make decisions the only way I know how. I'm gonna open up a Word doc, hit insert, and then make a table, and that's what I did. I'm not going to pull up the whole thing on screen share for you. I don't want to spoil. But I got 4 columns here. One for criteria, one for the points for Death Grips, one for the points for clipping, and then who the point goes to out of them.
Okay.
And right here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points, or 11 criteria. And
That's
I was
on
thinking
brand for me, buddy.
And I was thinking that we could kind of structure this where like we kind of go through these point by point and just kind of see if we agree on who these go to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would. I'd be down for that. It fits the bold form of experimentation I like to bring to every medium I tackle, and it involves you, Mark, and that's enough on brand for me.
Oh, shucks. I've never felt so much pressure in my life.
No, I mean that is a welcoming embrace.
No one man should have all this power. No, hang on, no. Scrap that. Now these are the powers that be.
Oh! He said it. You know, it's weird, Mark. Death Grips comes up a lot in our collaborations. For someone who is not as into noise rap like you, not to say you aren't, because again, you got me into clipping and gave me my song of the decade, which was a noise rap song, but I think it's safe to say like you don't listen to groups like Drat or like some of the more Italian noise rap groups that I do.
I didn't even know there was an Italian noise rap scene.
Oh yeah, dude. There's
but it's funny. I was gonna make this exact point before we go into it proper about how even in the 4.5 years since that podcast, like I really haven't gone that much deeper into this whole world. Whereas like I couldn't name a Dalek song, you know,
Yeah.
or like basically the people that like were you to say that Death Grips is 100% original, you would come back with, well, but these things from the 2000s.
You need to listen to Saul Williams' more noisy material. A Dalek is a thing.
I'm that guy.
Wow. Oh my God. Did YouTube's own Viral Rack just enter the chat?
Oh my God! I just love noise music. It really harshens the mellow of my existentialism.
Hey, who let you out of your Reddit hole?
I don't even use Reddit.
But so, okay. Well, I was going to mention, because in the Ed and Nettie stream, like, we gave all of the Death Grips albums Ed and Nettie names. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, what a deep cut. I love
I'm just saying, we talk about Death Grips a lot, and it's cool. So it actually kind of fits that you're here today.
Yeah, and I think that we're still coming, even though I'm a few years into knowing each artist's discography proper. I think that you still have a certain extra level of like nuance as far as analyzing this kind of style, I suppose, which will make this interesting. Because like I'm actually, if we're talking accessibility, like I'm one of the entry level people that was drawn into both these artists through their more accessible points, and then got into the weird shit from there as a gateway drug, you know?
Yeah.
So
Well,
we'll just
and I will say, at least you got into these acts and not Yeezus.
I even at the time I liked a few songs from it, but the bad parts were bad.
Yeah,
and like especially now, like I just choose to ignore anything after fantasy at me.
Oh, dude, but Pablo's actually really good.
I mean,
like, I'll die in the hill of Pablo.
It has
being
good.
man.
It's like weird. Like it's weird because like it is definitely in a lot of spots, but I just also don't care anymore.
When I do my reformatted Kanye review, I'm gonna piss off a lot of Kanye fans for how much I love Life of Pablo. That record's fucking amazing.
I'll be honest. Starting after the Trump support stuff, like I just made a very willpower heavy decision to just like I'm just not gonna participate in the discourse. I'm not gonna listen to any of the I'm not gonna listen to any of the new albums because I know I'll get hooked on something. And I don't regret it one goddamn bit. At me.
I will say, outside of Pablo and Kids See Ghosts, you aren't missing much. I mean, to be frank, I thought Ye was trash. It was really overrated. Like, people liked it a lot more than I feel like they should. Yeah.
Well, let's stop talking about them and start talking about the diet Death Grips and start talking about the
real Death Grips.
Actually, no, Death Grips Zero, because Zero sodas are always better than Diet. At me about that too.
So what was the first form of criteria on your table?
I decided to start
James Hetfield table.
We're pulling all the 2011 references.
I love vintage memes.
I mean, I was just talking about YouTube poops earlier, so why not?
Why not keep the train rolling?
I could make that. I could revise that to be a more modern reference. With the sentence mixing thing. Don't much dank me. How about that?
Oh, damn! Much dank. He pulled out a much dank.
I pulled out a much dank. I pulled out much dank.
He really did it to him.
But so this first category, name recognitions / normie ins, and in the Death Grip column, I got I don't know, Fantano. They had Robert Pattinson on a song once, but with clipping, it's like literally any time I meet a Hamilton stan, which is often, I just immediately go, "Hey, do you know what else that Thomas Jefferson does with his spare time when he's not doing the Hamilton thing? He's doing some weird shit. You want me to get you into some weird shit? Can I have your number? You know." And it always works. Please respond. Left on red. But no, it is kind of an insta sell for Hamilton fans in a way because it's David and he's just like this kind of beloved person even outside any kind of hip hop or indie music circles. Like there's people in Discord servers that I know are kind of fans of clipping and like probably know other noise rap stuff, just possibly like I'm sure like they are fans of the music, but it's just like done through that connection, you know? And I think that gives a layer of accessibility on just pure image and marketing alone.
You say that, but I don't think, and this is just coming from somebody who, like you, has been in this scene for so long, but doesn't flex that. When I talk to people, just anywhere, and it could just be because of the circles I run around, but Death Grips is a name that is like so very resonant still. I hear people... They were in Booksmart, a song.
Yes,
like they have.
And that was a wonderful moment, by the way. Stan Booksmart, by the way. Stan Booksmart. That's that. If no other message comes through from this episode, watch and then promptly Stan Booksmart. Thank you for your time. Because it put Death Grips on the screen, on the big screen.
Well, it did that, and I feel like you may not. And you can, again, because we've been so insularly in the scene for so long, you'd be surprised at how many people actually know who Anthony is and what he contributes to the music discourse outside of the internet. I hear a lot of people like bring him up in conversation, and it baffles me because they don't seem like internet people. I hear Death Grips brought up more than I feel like I would have had it not been for their immediate grand exposure to the world. You know, it's weird to me because, like, for a band so synonymous with the internet, they're a name that you can bring up. And I've heard people just go, oh, yeah, I know who that is. They're Death Grips. And I'm like, what? How do you know about Death Grips? It's weird because, like you said, they're not like clipping where they have that divide in, where people know who that guy is through his exploits outside of it.
Yeah, and that's weird to me because, I mean, it's almost like it turns into like, it almost turns into like, clipping is less known than Death Grips is less known than David, almost. Because, like, because, you know, even though Fantano does have his prominence, as you're saying, maybe more than we're giving credit for. Like, I mean, he just had Logic on his stream, you know, and he's having freaking Joe.
Well, and he interviewed on his clipping back in the day.
Of course.
Yeah.
But even with all that prominence, like, we're still putting that against Hamilton, you know, and like someone that Fantano praised and like gave one of his famous tens, but that's still not his part of the Fantano channel. Whereas, that's not part of the Fantano channel. Whereas, like, we're talking like a cast member, and like this is the other stuff he's doing. So I think like again, like there's different criteria by which to judge the criteria. There's layers to this shit.
I think that, and if we're gonna contextualize it in the vein of the albums themselves, I feel like more people are going to know about The Money Store than they will clipping self-titled.
That's fair. And I think maybe part of that might have to do with going on Epic Records versus Sub Pop.
That's also true. Because the labels we're talking... And this is why I didn't call it a major label, because I tried really hard to find like a noise rap album that had a major label debut that wasn't Kanye. And, yeah. And so... And it was hard because Saul's first record, even though it was on a big label, it wasn't like a noise rap album. It was like a slam poetry, alternative hip hop sort of thing. He didn't get noise rappy until his second record. Excuse me. But like these two groups came out of the gate, and I think that's more sort of resonates with label impact than group recognition, but that is also a discussion for later.
Yeah,
on.
But I guess like the goal I wanted to get to with this criteria was like talking to like an average person on the street who would be more easy to elevator pitch the idea and like convince to listen to the album in question.
Okay, yeah, then I think clipping would take that for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's why I gave the point to them. But like I almost want to keep track, like in case there's any impasses when it comes to this stuff. Would you give the point to Death Grips on this one, you think?
Based off of the album's name itself, yes. Based off of like the general name recognition of both groups, no. Because the only big name in Death Grips is Zach Hill, and he's another like if
That's
you know
indie.
you know kind of
He's
name.
indie famous. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that kind of stems from Pitchfork also being like a bigger publication, and they kind of gave Death Grips a lot of love back in the day, but it immediately fell to nothing. You know,
Yeah. Like who's gonna appeal to the normies more, Hamilton or Hella?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I haven't even gotten into them. But anyway, so criteria number 2. We can't spend this much time on all of them, but we can try. So obviously the introduction. So okay, so you've convinced them in one way or another to listen to this album. They queue up Spotify. They put on. They're going in blind, you know, because they trust you. You're their music nerd pal. They put on that first track with Death Grips. You get got with this catchy banger in a low register that kind of just goes in this very kind of.
It was almost the quietest Death Grips song for the longest time.
Exactly. In this very kind of vibey way, whereas Clipping is a literal ear-piercing drone with no chorus, ending in some severe audio crunch that's reminiscent of the interface that I just changed a couple days ago.
Yeah. And that was sort of a point of contention I would have brought up in the original format. While I think there's aspects, and we'll get into this as this goes on, that Clipping are more accessible, they do not start off on their most accessible foot.
Yes. And that really has to be taken into consideration if you're talking accessibility first impressions. Like, someone could just hear that and be like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas you hear that low rumble, that low got rumble, that just gets me nostalgic every time I throw it on.
And then they get got.
Yeah, and that fucking drop happens, and it's so good.
Yeah, so in that case, I would. So can we agree Death Grips gets the point on this one?
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So then we got relatable content. See, my take on this is the stuff Death Grips talks about. Maybe it is deep at a few points for sure. Not questioning any of that, but on a surface accessibility listen, they're just a bunch of angry boys. You know. Whereas, assuming that you're not like, you're just giving a surface listen where you're not like reading along with the lyrics or anything like that. Like it's just more about like the energy than like connecting with the words a lot of the time. Whereas like Clipping, comparatively, like David is one of the best enunciators in the game, to quote my old review of this album. Just giving very well enunciated insights into like systematic violence and almost like this kind of dark gallows humor kind of way sometimes, or just telling a cool ass story kind of related to that kind of thing. And I think that is something that on a thematic level can really hook in the average listener a little easier.
So do you think that stems from more delivery than anything? Because if you look at a lot of the lyrics on, or even if you listen to the lyrics on The Money Store, they don't sound too dissimilar from stuff on Clipping. You know, it's done in a little more of a direct fashion, like on Get God or I've Seen Footage, you know. But I feel like there is or even on Hacker, there is a focus on a sort of discourse and an analyzing again, similar things that Clipping does, but Clipping has tracks like Tonight, which are a little more, which are
universe. Let's be generous and say universal.
Yeah, because I mean the song itself isn't about anything.
We'll get to Tonight in one other criteria here. I'll just.
it's less a deconstruction on the world at large and why it sucks and you are alone, and more on you are alone, but it's because you aren't getting your dick wet. And I feel like songs like that, for their subject matter, would be a little more relatable for sure.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, for the insight that Death Grips might give into, like, mental conditions, I think that plays a lot. There's kind of a twistedness to it. Like, you still gotta dig through a lot of delivery stuff in order to get to it, so a lot of those nuances might not immediately hit.
Well, and that's that's why I was asking if delivery was more a factor to that and less about the lyrics, because I would say from a delivery standpoint, David is a much more presentable deliverer.
So I'm talking about, like, the raw content in this one, because the nice segue, the next criteria is vocal delivery.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I feel like the last criteria could easily be lumped into this one, because part of that stems from the delivery. Because, again, if you look at the lyrics, or if you listen to the lyrics on The Money Store, there's moments that feel a little more... And this is why it's easy to call it their pop record, because they write in a less obtuse fashion in a handful of songs. You know, if you're looking at verses and verse style, but delivery, I feel like, is a big component of getting people to listen to the words that you say.
Yes, that was my point with how that can factor. Even though the categories you're right, do have a lot of bleeding into each other. That's what and that's kind of how they inform each other. That said, as you can probably tell, in this department, I did give clipping both of the points here.
Yeah.
Would you agree on that?
If only because of the delivery, yes. But I feel like if David were to rap the songs on Death Grips, the lyrics would not, with no unchanged lyrics, they would feel the same.
That's fair. And I think, like, as far as, like, the vocals, like, you know, if you're gonna I think, like, even more so than, like, the noisy production, honestly, like, people's main issue when it comes to main sticking point when it comes to hearing Death Grips for the first time, I know it was an issue for me, is why is this homeless man mad at me?
Yeah.
You know? And that tends to be, like, the biggest disclaimer when you're introducing someone to them. Whereas, like, even with all the noisiness and stuff, David is still smooth as hell, even about, like, the super dark stuff. And that's honestly what kind of makes it fun in a way sometimes, in like an eerie kind of way. But he knows how to, like, be more of, like, a presenter of the themes, like a host of it.
I feel like MC Rod, especially on The Money Store, again, he does a lot better at reining in that sort of unhinged nature. Because, like I said, songs like Get Got and Double Helix, like, he's just speaking to you. You know, it's not as much about screaming and anguish. I feel like the only song where the production gets in the way of the lyrics is Blackjack, because they do that delay, echo, reverby effect on his voice, and the lyrics are pretty lost in that one.
Yeah, true, but we're not talking in context. See, the thing is, we are not talking in context the rest of their discography. We're talking about introducing them to a normie here, accessibility.
And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. On The Money Store, Double Helix and Get Got are songs from The Money Store. I'm talking about in context of the record. I'm talking about, I'm talking about in context of this record. I feel like if you listen to, he does a lot more to rein in his delivery on this record, you know, and I feel like that's, again, what, if you're not factoring delivery in, I feel like the writing and the presentation of the writing is done in a way that's as accessible as clipping, in my opinion.
Right.
Like, I feel like the only time when the production, again, gets kind of in the way of that is Blackjack, and that's because Blackjack, again, has weird vocal effects on it.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, honestly, there is, spoiler, there is one section here where I kind of make it equal. If you want to make it equal for the content category,
I think it'd be fair to, just because, again, it's I think in your argument, or at least in discussion of it, delivery plays a lot more into why you lump clipping in. At least from what I'm understanding,
Yeah,
and I could be wrong about that.
There's it's a little column A, a little column B, but yeah. So I put, but on a pure vocal level, we definitely say clipping.
Oh, for sure, absolutely, because I feel like it's really hard to. That is a hard sell a lot of the time.
It's the hardest sell when it comes to Death Grips, like even more than the production.
Oh,
and funny
for
enough,
sure.
this is a good segue into. See what I'm doing here? This is a good segue into the next category, which I'm calling RIP headphone users, about the noisiness of the production. And I have this might be a weird take. Hear me out. So Death Grips is a very noisy band, without question about it. But to me, because even though the noisiness does pierce a little more in some spots than others, I'm looking at like a Punk Weight or like a Lost Boys, for example. But generally, especially like in context of discography, I know I just said context of discography doesn't matter here, but like especially in the case of the Money Store, like it's the noisiness is kind of like it's like a hot bath, or it's like a hot tub, like. Once, like, it's a little intense when you first step into it, but once you get used to it, it's kind of a vibe you settle into in a weird, twisted kind of way. Whereas with clipping, talk about that intro, talk about like Get Up, for example, or like those
love Get Up,
or
but
like
I
those
put
or
that
like those
song on.
Yeah, or like those blasts of distortion in the chorus of Inside Out, which is a very catchy chorus, an aspect of which we'll get to, but. When they pull out the noise, it's like for the effect of like an opposite of a vibe, where they use it more to kind of shock you and to effectively kind of pull you out in a very effective kind of way that really serves the record in an artistic kind of way. But it's still probably gonna just, for a person looking for accessibility, it'll probably jolt them a little, like, what was that? In a way where like if they're
Get Up.
Yeah, whereas like if they're like settling in, to like, okay, we're into Get God, we're into like Fever, it's like by the time you get to like a Lost Boys, it's like, okay, like you're sort of in their world at that point. Whereas like clipping tries to like wiggle you around a little more, wriggle you around a little more.
I think that's the effectiveness of the Money Store's production, because clipping tried to deliver not only the same noise rap shit that was on Mid-City, they try to get a little more ambitious with it, at least from what I can see on their self-titled debut. Whereas the Money Store feels like the best foot Death Grips had to get into the general consensus. You know, and I feel like the pacing of the record is a big factor into that, because not only do you start with one of the lowest key songs they had done at that point in their career, they follow it up with the single, the big, lead joint to get that hooked people initially. So people who already were sold were in a warm place before, like you said, getting weird with Lost Boys. Whereas,
a better place.
Yeah. Whereas clipping started with that harsh and kind of kept it throttling with Body and Blood, but still, like you said, they kind of go all over the map, and it's to service the thematics, to service the picture they're trying to paint. And while
they're a little more like trying to like be jarring about it, which is why I actually give the point of noisiness to, despite the vocal presentation, I actually give the accessibility of RIP headphone users point to Death Grips in this case.
Oh, same. I feel like the beat work on... I love the beat work on clipping. I think it's ingenious that they made alarm clocks like a beat. I fucking am jealous that they made that a thing, because I fucking love that. But Hacker, that is straight up just like an apocalyptic disco jam. They used like disco sound samples in that, and it's fucking cool. Like, that is... To work that into a noise rap cut with abrasive snares and all that sort of shit, it's incredible. They work some real accessible mastery behind the board on the Money Store. So I'd give it to Death Grips as well.
And oh my god, another perfect segue, because the next category, and so I'm making a very there's two sections for hooks here. The first, we're exclusively talking about the like melodic and like production hooks, basically. And for Death Grips, I've singled out like the riffs in like Get Got, like doo 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 doo, and like the I've seen footage. I promise you, that's the one song out. That's definitely, actually, there is one song on both these albums that I've momentarily tried to teach myself the chords to on guitar, but like I've seen footage is the one I could see myself like actually in a crazy enough cover band possibly pulling off.
I mean, it's the most normal song.
Yeah. For the record, Get Up is the one from Clipping, because I almost picture in like a with the staccato of the alarm clock, I almost picture it in almost like a hardest button to button kind of vibe, where it's like a like a kick drum going. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's like one of my like deep in my head that I might try to make work at some point, but I don't know if it'll possibly ever be able to happen.
Get Jack White's distortion pedal and make it a thing. Like, get his fuzz pedal and make it truly just a White Stripes song.
I might need you to guest rap on it, and I can do the chorus.
All right. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. If nothing else comes from this episode, this whole thing's just been a promo for this cover, which you can check out on Spotify now.
So you had a section for
yes. So anyway.
Hooks.
So production hooks. So on Death Grip side, we got the Get Got, we got the I've Seen Footage, and in the cage, the little riffs going on there too, and especially in case of choruses, like the melody that
what
sending
about Hustle Bones?
I was about to say in the chorus of Hustle Bones, and also that descending riff in The Fever, because like even though the vocals in it are just like duh, buh, buh, like it still just got that descending like dun, 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 which is like a really good hook genuinely in its own right.
Yeah,
and then on the clipping side, I cited the very kind of like not as many examples, honestly. Like they're there, but I cited like the kind of sound collage work in Work that was not intended. Yeah. That it has that's like spoopy but kind of soothing vibe. And then see, my point against clipping in this department is that if you look at the run times, for example, Death Grips on the hookier songs on there. For a lot of the songs, even like the less directly hooky ones, they kind of get in and get out for the most part. Whereas like
they get in and get got.
They get in, you get got, and they get out. That's the new Vinny Vidi Vici. Get in, get got, get out. but and I wouldn't be surprised if that's like framed somewhere in their studio. But anyway, but see, whereas clipping, and this kind of speaks to like the RP headphones users department, where like they're a little shits about it a little more. Like they're a little more likely to like take you in this like 5-6 minute trip of stuff just to creep you out a little, where it's like very down, like songs like Taken Off and Dream, like and it's something that like has an atmosphere and is great artistically in its own right, but like isn't necessarily gonna draw the ear in the same way that the Money Store might track to track.
So I think that more stems from clipping's focus on the vocal hook, because even those songs, even Taking Off, has that hook of they always taking off, they taken off. Like it has a hook, but they fall more into the line B. And that more has to do with their because they also have the guests that factor into that. They do a lot more to sell their sound from in a broader perspective from their vocals. They don't let their harsh noise or anything. They let their noise, their backdrop be the MC ride of the group. The harder sell for them is not the rapping, it is the sounds. And while I think that that's a knock against them in this column, and I definitely think that could be a general knock against them, I think that they use that pretty serviceably. Because even Get Up, which I would argue is one of the catchier sonic backdrops, it's alarm clocks, so it's not going to work.
Yeah. Exactly, but like yeah, on like a pure like production hook level, like we would definitely we would probably give the point to Death Grips in this
for
case.
sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And this segues into the vocal hooks where I just decided to I just ended up I decided to like go through all the albums and just like pick out all of the choruses I found myself rapping or screaming or singing along with, just in my head at the very least. And for Death Grips, I got the following. I got get. That's the only one not in all caps. Then then of course there's I got the fever. Hustle coming out my mouth. I've seen footage. I've been annoyed. Like they've got so many. That's such a catchphrase album.
I'm
by
in
the
your
way.
area.
That's what I was going to get to. But like that's such like a catchphrase album. You know what I'm saying? And that takes talent to make work in a chorus. And of course, obviously the one that hasn't been mentioned, bitch, please, you must be
smoking rocks.
real shit. See, album versus album. Come for the music discussion. Stay for two white boys screaming Death Grips.
Yeah. Like it's 2012.
You're telling me it's not?
So,
it feels just as much like the end of the world. Hey-oh.
Hey.
But see, and now and see, like on the clipping, like I did come up with 6 choruses on the clipping side too. There is the on Body and Blood, cut some girl,
She don't
eat
need
some
you
girl.
for shit, put your dick in you.
Yeah, and see,
or that too. Yeah.
See, you know what I'm saying? Like the more kind of thing that would be like screamed along at the concert, because I've been to one of those.
Yeah.
And and also like the get that, and I feel like maybe the one that's the most like one of the more kind of hip hop radio friendly ones. Like the get that work, make that work, get that.
Yeah.
Of course, because the woman's so fine in the summertime, turn a 6 to a dime in the summertime. Like that one gets stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the chorus to Get Up, despite literally everything else, is
But that song
gorgeously
is so
delivered.
catchy. God, I love. I wish more. I wish
when they
more would
freaking
hear that song.
harmonize the alarm clocks.
And
then
fucking Mariel Jacoda's voice
Yeah.
just so seeps into them. It's beautiful. The first time I heard clipping and that song came on, I was like, I felt like I transcended. It sent me, because it was so incredible,
Of course, and the other ones I have here are everybody want to rap but don't know how. Everybody want down to get money or die, get famous. But see, like these are like, oh, of course, there's murder on the inside, everybody outside. But see, like some of these, like even some of these vocal hooks are like a little wordier and not quite as visceral as like on Death Grips'.
I'd argue
That said, this is the category. This is the category where I have them as equal.
See, I would argue, and this is where delivery, I feel like, factors in. Tonight, also, that hook, while as stupid and as cheesy as it is,
Don't say it.
I honestly like Tonight. I think it slaps a little bit. But, like, it's one of those songs that is its hook is so accessible, not just for the auto-tune and the way it works with David's singing. I put that in heavy quotes, but I also think that those written repetitive almost mantras that are the songs, the get that work, make that work, not only play really well, they are David's writing style. David writes a lot of, like, because I've listened to stuff of his outside of clipping, and it seems to be kind of a thing with him. He just kind of has this mantra style of hook writing, and maybe it's just because I think it works really well, but I also really love, again, the hook of Taking Off. I feel like
my argument with Taking Off is
more.
that, like, Taking Off is like, it's a hook in just the most like technical sense possible, where it's just like a thing to put between the verses to like establish the title.
I mean, it's a chorus. That's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be the theme of the song delivered in a bass level format.
yeah, but I guess like we just have different criteria for, because like it's not like the part where it's like, oh shit, here's my favorite part, Taking Off. We're taking off.
Well, that song itself isn't that kind of song. You know, that song acts as a sort of sonic divergent from tracks like Work Work and Body and Blood. And I would argue the hook or the beat of Body and Blood, that sample, helps the chorus of that song.
Absolutely.
Because the part past the Body and Blood, the almost second chorus, or the second half of the chorus, isn't anything without that first half of the body and blood. She don't want you for shit but your dick, and that plays so well into the second half of the chorus. So I don't know. While I think Death Grips definitely vocally deliver hooks on it, like Hustle Bones, there's a lot more singable moments, and I think that comes down to the songwriting for The Money Store, and I'd be more inclined to give it to Death Grips, maybe. I wouldn't count out how catchy, and this may more transcend to, I could hear songs from clippings still play on modern hip-hop stations. I could not say the same for The Money Store.
It's crazy that these are all segueing so perfectly. Now let me ask, like, so would you give the point in the vocal department to clipping then, or would you make it equal like I am?
Honestly, no, I'd probably give it to The Money Store just for what you said. Like, that whole, you can scream, I got the fever! Like, there's hooks there in the rawest sense. Whereas, like you said, the hooks to clipping, while I could hear them being played on radio stations, I don't know if that necessarily means that by and large they are more accessible than the hooks of The Money Store.
Yeah. And now this transitions perfectly to, I have two criteria that are appeals to certain demographics of fans. So one is appeal to rap fans, like the general rap, the general hip hop head community, I suppose. And for this, for Death Grips, I would basically echo the same argument as with the vocal delivery, where like they won't like that he's like that, with the exception of like a Get Got or Hacker or something like that. Yeah. But for the most part, like, you know, when you picture MC Ride's delivery, you picture the crazy shit.
The crazy shit ass, you know, yelling at the top of his fucking lungs, nihilistic ass. I love MC Ride.
Exactly. Whereas like clipping, and I feel like this is when we can finally start giving a point to clipping, where I don't want to spoil too much. Where first off, way more coherent on average. That's just objectively true. Not a lot of things in music are objective.
Sure.
I think we can confidently say objectively true. It technically, I mean, and also like on a technical rapping level, it kind of I mean, MC Riot has his own amazing talent and stuff like that, but on a pure like rap fundamentals level, like I think on a technical level, David's stuff kind of pops off the page way more often, especially if you're like reading through on Genius with like all the internal rhymes and like the way he like rhythmically flips through things, especially if you go to like a song, a story two. I almost said song two. Now I want to hear clipping doing song two.
It's just a noisy ass version of song two.
Woohoo.
Now I feel heavy metal.
Literally, it's just like a sample of like an industrial press being put through there. So it is literally heavy
with like
metal.
A sand belt thrown under there.
And then that becomes their one giant hit in the UK.
Yeah.
But in the story too, like that's like especially one where you could kind of just marvel at, like, if you're just like a general rap fan trying to get into this more experimental stuff, that's totally an in point, I'd say, to getting into something, getting into a more left field act like a clipping, is that like you can still tell, like, okay, this is a rapper ass rapper at the at the center of it.
Yeah. And I think, again, delivery is going to factor a lot into that for sure, and I would be inclined to give clipping the point for that, but I'm not going to count out. Because again, when MC Ride decides to rap, dude actually pulls off some pretty cool rhyme schemes, dude. Some pretty cool bars.
Absolutely. But we're talking about on average here.
The verses in Double Helix are fucking so good. But I would agree that because the delivery and the presentation on pure fundamentals deviate so far for Death Grips, if we're talking about hip-hop fans, they're going to like clipping more because David is a rapper-ass rapper. I feel like even rap fans would listen to the intro and be like, because when he comes in with that Ghost on the Avenue, like he's going off, and any hip-hop fan hearing that dude go off like that with no beat, no measure to go with, and just riding this noise, that alone would be like, all right, I'm inclined to hear more.
Yeah. And you know what also helps is that, like, you know, so I think this is sort of a similar thing what Death Grips did, but I think especially like more so with clipping, like on a sonic level, like they really pared back, they, for lack of a better term, dumbed it down a little bit as far as like hooks go compared to Mid City, and like you could like, if it'd be crazy to hear clipping on like mainstream hip hop radio, but like in a vacuum, like hearing like work or like maybe or like even Inside Out on there, like wouldn't be totally crazy.
No,
really, and yeah.
I mean, there's other songs
like a little edgier,
more of a discography.
Like on the edgier side of things, but still.
There's songs from other records of theirs that I would see being played on the radio first over songs from this debut, but there are still songs from this debut that I could see, at least in somewhere, being played on a hip-hop station.
Yeah. And now the other category is appeal to other music fans, like outside of hip-hop, because I say that because I think Death Grips is a way easier to sell to, like, rock fans or like hardcore fans, punk fans. Like I can totally see, and I think I probably have seen at some point, like I could totally see them being like I don't like rap, but Death Grips kicks ass.
I love Death Grips. Well, that's why I've more called Death Grips to other people. I don't know if I've said this to you, but I call Death Grips the internet's punk band, not just in mentality, but in writing, in presentation.
I can see it.
It's more in line with a punk band.
Yeah, and especially once you get to like a Jenny Death, like the instrumentation wise, like it even starts getting way more clear in that kind of way.
But you can even see in aspects of that teased on this debut, and I'll talk about this later on as to label and stuff. But I feel like that is what sold, at least to me, because everybody knows at this point, I like noise. I like noise music. I like noise rap. I wasn't sold on Death Grips as a rap group. Yeah, they rap, but David also just screams his brains out, and it's fucking incredible. The dude is a rapper in essence, but he's very much more so a punk vocalist. The dude,
wait, you mean MC Ride? You said David.
Yeah, I meant MC Ride.
Okay.
MC Ride at his core is a rapper for sure, but the dude is moreover a punk vocalist. And I feel like that in tandem with Zach Hill's drumming, the beefiness in Flatlander's, synths, and when they do introduce stuff like guitars or guitar samples, they feel more like a punk band. So I could agree with that for sure.
Yeah. And so now on the clipping side, I just put like, I don't know, maybe Hamilton points with the theater kids. But I don't know, or like maybe like, more kind of like you were alluding to, like more like ambient and noise fans with like the sonic stuff. But we're talking about accessibility here, and that's less accessible than either of these anyway.
Those niches.
That's more niche than what we're talking about here. So, like even more niche than like a hardcore kid getting into Death Grips. Like So I think this point can safely go to Death Grips, right? You think?
For sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Then we got two more categories, and I think these can be knocked out pretty quick. Bad songs, like how consistently good, and for the Money Store, like we've talked about one of my favorite moments in the old podcast is when I admit I'm not crazy about blackjack, and your iconic reaction of blackjack, no. It was just amazing.
That song is so good.
But see, even with blackjack and fuck that, which I'm not crazy about, but like I'm fine with them, and they're both two of like the shorter tracks. I think they're both under 2.5 minutes. They don't get in the way of anything. Whereas on Clipping Subtitled, we've been building up to it tonight, just tonight.
Just because I love Gangsta Boo, but I fucking love that song. I think that's.
But you
fine.
gotta admit that that could be the point that turns a lot of people off about like what the fuck, no.
I think if you're willing to sit through that intro track, you're gonna sit through tonight.
But they're hard sits in very different ways.
What? So I know people don't like, at least Anthony didn't like aspects of Tonight, but what don't you specifically like about Tonight?
The one thing that just sticks in my head is just how off-key and just bad that chorus is.
That's the point! That's the point of the song! The song is meant to be...
I'm sure there's an amazing satirical underpinning to it, but I just can't stand it. I know, but
absolutely the point.
I still just cannot sit through that to get to it.
That's honestly fair. No, I like Tonight a lot. I like what it does for flipping club rap culture on its head. I love how stupid that hook is. I think David sells it because to me, the hook of Tonight reads as David in a karaoke bar. He's like 5 shots deep. He's like in it, and he's just wailing into this microphone, wanting to get his dick wet, and he's drunkenly calling out for girls on the floor. You trying to fuck tonight or what? Like, that is exactly the character I see in that song. And I feel like David's writing does a great job at cementing you in the character of that song. But I understand why, if that is the issue you take with it, you don't gravitate towards the song.
And you know what? I think this is a similar kind of argument as like when we were talking about how Death Grips is probably doing amazing stuff thematically, but you gotta get through that delivery. Like, it's a similar kind of barrier to entry to me. I'm not sure if it would reflect the average music listener, but like it's a deep barrier to entry with me when it comes to Tonight. And I'll have to re-listen to it following this to see if I get a new perspective on it. But I still think personally Death Grips gets the point. But I'm not sure where you're leaning on that.
So I kind of lost track. What was the?
It's like it's like bad songs / like consistency, you know.
I think if we're still running with the accessibility thread across consistency, Death Grips for sure. If only because, again, those barriers we've initially discussed could definitely be into a factor of that bad song ratio. If we're talking about the average listener, you and I may like the intro. There's people that aren't going to like the intro. I love Get Up. I've had people physically tell me to shut it off because they are annoyed with it. So, like, there is a real barrier to aspects of clipping that I don't feel like Death Grips comes close to as far as bad songs are considered.
And I'll be honest, like, even re-listening to this album tonight, like, I basically took both these albums and put them in a playlist on shuffle. And as soon as Get Up came, I had to instinctively go to the volume and turn it down a few notches. So I think that just speaks to it right now. Even 6 years later, still really appreciating and loving that song. Like, I still gotta... This is a little much. It's still kind of cutting in a certain part of my ears that the rest of this album doesn't. You know, because it's one of those more jarring points. But speaking of, but I feel like that's a good segue. I forgot how, but the last category, the ending, because I think this is pretty clear cut personally. Because on one side you got I'm in your area, another catchy banger in a mostly low palatable register. Whereas with the clipping one, you get like the William mix, which I'm sorry, it's their Revolution 9. Let's be real, Chief.
No, Piano Burning is their Revolution number 9.
But that's more of an ambient. That's more of like a field recording ambient piece. I'm talking like the William mix is like it's like this sound collage that's like that like. But yeah, I guess you could make an argument for either.
So that's a thing with with clipping in general. Outside of Splendor and Misery,
Better Place, which is one of their most accessible songs. That is a gateway song to them for sure.
That is their best song, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise.
I will not disagree.
For perfection.
I will not disagree.
But outside of that, clipping just don't know how to end their records. I mean, they really like even listening to There Exists an Edition of Blood. It doesn't lead into Piano Burning. It just happens, and you're like, okay, that's cool, I guess.
For 20 minutes, it's a cool thing. Oh, that's a nice kind of sound to have play to kind of fade the thing out. Sure, why not? 20 minutes later.
Yeah, that's just an issue with clipping in general. And Hacker is Death Grip's best song, in my opinion.
Yeah. That song. I mean, and also you got to keep in mind the ending to Mid City, the get money, get money, get money, get money, get money.
That's the Revolution number 9, if anything.
Yeah. That's just their. It's just every album has a Revolution 9.
Yeah.
Do you like
Except for a Better Place?
Do you like the Beatles, but wish every album had a Revolution 9?
Then you'll love clipping. Except for Splendor and Misery, you'll think it sucks because it's too accessible.
Imagine thinking Splendor and Misery is too accessible.
Right?
But see, in a weird way, that might be an accessible point to some people who maybe to like other subsets of people like freaking sci-fi nerds or something that would get into like a narrative story like that. But that's a whole other conversation.
Well, and here's another addendum to that conversation. If you look at the pacing to Splendor and Misery, it is, I would argue, the more accessible clipping record. But I didn't put it up for this because it wasn't their label debut. It was their second album on a label. But yeah, I think we got to give it to Death Grips in that regard because Hacker is. They name drop Gaga, man. Gaga can't handle that shit, man.
Oh, I forgot about that part. You're right. Okay, so I want to tally it up. I feel like we can kind of safely. You can probably already guess if you've been paying attention in your head, loyal listener who's listened through this whole thing. I hope you can do it 1.5. I'll forgive you. But so on my side, we got.
He's counting.
4.5 points for clipping and 6 points for Death Grips. And on your side, Johnny, we got 2.5 points for clipping and 8 points for Death Grips.
I like the money story.
We can definitively. I mean, I give both these albums. I have both these albums. I think about the same score and rate your music. I think we can safely say we have scientifically determined, statistically determined, that in fact the Money Store is empirically and therefore the more accessible album.
Now, here is the interesting adjacent conversation to that. Both of these were label debuts. Both of them, I would argue, throttled them into the cultural zeitgeist in their own ways. Clipping more had help as well. Like you said, David kind of is a busy man. He's all over the map. Death Grips, this is it for them. This is their big thing. But label life isn't for everybody. And both of these artists, while Clipping is still on Sub Pop, and they have been making a killing by creating their most accessible record and an incredible reinvention on the horrorcore genre,
twice.
Death Grip-
Honestly, that new song is honestly
fucking sick.
and probably another gateway song. I'd point someone to.
Oh yeah, and it's weird because like one of the things I like about this the just looking at the track listing for the new record. Not only do they have I don't know how to pronounce the name.
Bodies being
9909.
burned. Bodies being
Yeah,
burned.
they have bodies. Yeah. Well, no, I meant like the guest for the track.
I know.
Like
just
meat.
just for anyone not familiar with the fact that Clipping's dropping a part 2 to the horror to the another Spoop album, which is just fantastic. I mean, I actually heard the whole backstory about how they actually wanted to make There's This in Addiction to Blood and Visions of Bodies Being Burned. They actually wanted to make all those songs a double album, but Sub Pop was like, that might be a little more than people can manage, which, I mean, I think that supports our decision right here. But they're like, okay, we'll make it 2 albums.
They just seemingly are doubling down on that horror aesthetic. And as a fan of Spooky Times, as a fan of Clipping, I'm excited for what they're doing. And I'm glad that Sub Pop is giving them an outlet to do so. And they're thriving in ways that other hip-hop acts had not done on Sub Pop. So I'm really happy to see them do so. And I think that in tandem with David's success on Hamilton and Blind Spotting, continue to prove that Clipping were just made for this label lifestyle. Death Grips, while, again, capturing the hearts and minds of the internet all over, did not stick to the label lifestyle. They ceremoniously, they were booted from their label by dropping an album early that the label told them not to do. But not only did it do that, there's a dick as the album cover.
The dick.
Further cementing why Death Grips are the internet's punk rock band. Yeah. Do you think, and I have a question for you, Mark, do you think that Death Grips would have ever stayed on a label? Do you think that because seemingly they do everything purposefully. You know, like you said, they broke up only to come back together a year later, and it was seemingly only done to get out of a tour agreement that they were thrust upon.
With 9 Inch Nails of all people. Like, why would you want to get out of that? That's a horror conversation. But...
I think Algiers fits their bill more than Death Grips personally. I like Death Grips, but they are not a band to open for 9 Inch Nails.
True, but I did see 9 Inch Nails on that tour. I think it was the one with Soundgarden. And I'm just imagining seeing Death Grips in that amphitheater. Oh, that would have been a thing of beauty.
But that's not the scene for them, you know?
I know, but it would have been so weird. I would love to say I was there.
Yeah. I think Death Grips are meant for shitty bars, low-key venues for them to tear down. And it's weird that the Money Store even exists because it almost feels enigmatic in concept. A band so against accessibility, cultural norms, making a record like the Money Store. And I think that's the magic in it. You know, But again, I kind of jumped into another tangent with my question. Do you think Death Grips really belonged on a label? Do you think that they were meant to make records like the Money Store and thrive in the way that Clipping has on a label?
I don't think they would have stuck around. I think that even if they were good little boys when it came to No Love Deep Web and they just kept that dick to themselves, I still think they would have they would have ended up making that the cover for like the 10-year anniversary or something. I think that just stylistically with how weird and unpredictable they've gotten, like Epic wouldn't let them do The Powers That Be the way they did. They wouldn't let them do like the weird rollout for like Fashion Week in the way they did. Like they're just so on their own trajectory that I couldn't see that even past the whole leaking thing. I couldn't see a relationship with with the same label that I don't know who was on Epic Records at the time, but let's just say, just naming a major label band, being on the same label as like freaking Imagine Dragons or something, let's say. I couldn't imagine the same label management like being able to manage both of those ethoses at once. Like that was never going to be sustainable either way. Like they were going to end up indie legends again one way or another.
Here's thinking about it, I don't know if I agree with that. And here's why. Because if you listen to No Love Deep Web, it's not as accessible as the Money Store, but it has its moments. Tracks like Artificial Death in the West, Come Up and Get Me, kind of, Pop, and if you look at Powers That Be, you could almost, if they were on a label still when making that record, they could have pulled, while I don't think they would have put out Fashion Week, so you definitely would have been
my
hurt.
life would have been so much worse. This is my legacy.
They could have pulled they could have pulled a Clipping, because Clipping's doing that now. They're putting out a double album in two parts.
Yes, but they're on Sub Pop. Like I could, like Death Grips could make it on Sub Pop their whole careers easily, I think.
But here's the thing. The Powers That Be's first disc had a big name on it to help throttle it. Bjork. She is a big component of the Powers That Be. And by pitching that to a label, I think Epic would have had, especially given how much success the Money Store brought them. It was a very successful record for them. I think they could have pulled the Powers That Be out on a major label. They would have gotten frustrated when they delayed it a shit ton of times, but I think they could have done it. They would have been dropped after the fucking video for
Shit Show?
No, Inanimate Sensation dropped with the fucking shit posty ass visuals to it. They would have been like, what the fuck are you doing, guys? But I think, I don't know. I think Death Grips could have worked on a label.
I think that we're really overestimating how much freedom major labels would be willing to give these people in the 2010s, especially.
That's true.
Because I think that
That's
like
true.
Maybe if it was like the mid 90s when like the Butthole Surfers had hits, then maybe I could see Death Grips kind of sliding in with under that. But I think in the 2010s music industry, they would be a liability for a major label no matter what.
Honestly, the major label life killed the Butthole Surfers. Let's be real.
I mean, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, they made two albums, and
I don't know. Dracula from Houston does not sound like the band that would make fucking Locust Abortion Technician.
Yeah, I'll admit I haven't taken a surf into the butthole as much as I'd like to say, but I will one of these days.
I like the Butthole Surfers. I don't know if you really like them, Mark. I'm going to be honest.
I mean, I know that Pepper isn't representative, obviously, but
very much so.
Absolutely. But I'm still try. I'm gonna start with the albums with the hits and just kind of very carefully dip the toe and just see where my threshold is, I guess. And then we'll start we'll start a whole you talking U2 to me, are you talking REM me style podcast about the Butthole Surfers discography.
Who surfs the butthole loudest?
You surfing in my butthole.
Oh man. So yeah, I don't know. I think Clipping are doing well for themselves. I'm really happy that they're a voice for noise rap and industrial hip hop, and I think they're doing really wonderful experimental things with it. Honestly, do you think Death Grips is even still a thing anymore? Would you count them out now?
why would you count them out more now than than when they were literally broken up?
Because when they were broken up, the whole act seemed a little weird. It was presented in a very Death Grips 2013 sort of way, but it was done so in a way that felt very disingenuous. Death Grips were always a guise of mystery, but I feel like because it has been silent, because I feel like they, even by the end of the decade, felt like they were kind of just fading away. I wouldn't.
There was also kind of a silence between Bottomless Pit and You're the Snitch, right?
No, they had an EP come out, like a Megamix EP
Right.
that came out called Steroids. They were still kind of around doing stuff. It's been 2 years because they had like a leak drop out last year.
It's been 2 years since the last Death Grips album.
Yeah, they had like weird bootleg stuff drop, like the Gmail thing, but and it may just because Death Grips as a project want to release something in a way that's different. Death Grips are always about pushing cultural or like internet norms as far as like how to present music. That's why they had like the ARG stuff and all that, and maybe they're just kind of workshopping ways to reinvent the wheel in that regard. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Death Grips were just on a secret extended break from each other. They were doing a lot in a decade. In a decade, they dropped so much fucking music, and it was all a smash. Even if you hate Government Plates, it has bops on it, and I'll fight anyone who says that otherwise.
Absolutely. Freaking birds.
Well, even the more abrasive stuff, like the Bob Dylan intro.
I mean, again, that's the other accessibility point with them. They got the Batman on one of their songs, and have you seen the picture of them, Robert Pattinson and Beyonce? Yeah. And did you see that Reddit AMA when Robert explains the backstory behind that picture?
I've not seen the Reddit AMA.
Oh, I need to link you that. But anyway, show notes.
You do. But yeah, I don't know. I think Death Grips are done at least for now. You know, clipping, I would love to see continue to experiment because they're both groups. They're doing things in a very reinventive sort of way. They're both experimenting with music, but I think Death Grips is done for now. And watch after I drop this.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if that was the case, then like Zach Hill would have had like a new. He hasn't like dropped anything in any other projects since You're the Snitch, right? I haven't heard anything.
Hold on.
Because he's had other projects before and during all this.
Yeah.
So it would be weird if there was a break since the last Death Grips album for a couple years that like part of the time wouldn't be spent on that. Like I don't see him as the kind of creative force that would like maybe MC Rye, but like I don't see him like as like the kind of creative force that would just like sit around, just like sit around the house on the couch, occasionally looking at the drum kit and going for 2 years. I don't see that.
I mean, it's possible he's working on other stuff. I think that if he is working on something, it isn't with Death Grips. I really do. I don't think Death Grips is doing anything right now. I don't think they're online. I think they're offline.
They're gonna put out. They're gonna put out like a send off single called Death Grips is Offline.
Well, I was gonna say watch because when we put out our Weird Al podcast, a lot of people started making Weird Al content.
Really?
Watch us. Yeah, dude. Benching with Babish did a thing.
Oh yeah,
fucking Red Letter Media.
Twinkie Wiener Sandwich, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Red Letter Media reviewed UHF. Like after our podcast, there was a weird, noticeable influx of Weird Al content hit the internet. So like,
our impact.
I wouldn't be surprised if like Death Grips just like. Not because of us. I'm not saying that we have, like, this kind of pull. I'm just saying that we have this weird coincidental... Whenever we come together, coincidences occur. I wouldn't be surprised if Death Grips just drops a thing, like, next week.
Listen, man. Listen, man. Let's think about our you've heard the bacon number. Let's talk about our Stefan number here. Okay. So, we have worked
about my Stefan number.
So, we have worked with the Coliseum Fellows, and multiple of those Coliseum Fellows have worked with Fantano, Mr. Yo Stefan himself.
Yeah.
I rest my case. Word can get up that there is still interest, and we will have saved the music industry.
I'm gonna cut the bullshit and just send this podcast to Anthony and tell him to listen to it.
I would be so honored.
Hey, I'll do it. I don't give a fuck. I send Anthony weird shit all the time.
Okay.
With that, but I feel like this is just a couple words to just jump from a cut. We're gonna be wrapping up this week's podcast.
Yeah.
Mark, do you have anything you want to throw out there to the lovely people? You do stuff. You're Mr. Promotion. You're Mr. Media Man.
I'll admit that. I mean, I think that I talked about in June was when we recorded the last thing. I was
the
definitely
Weird Al one.
Yeah, I was in. Yeah. In that time, I probably talked about being in this weird creative hibernation state where I wasn't doing much on the content front lately. I'm kind of starting to crawl my way out of that right now. I put out a video on the Fully Involved YouTube channel, Fully Involved being my music project, of which you've talked about on Listening Logs and had a hand in mixing sometimes. I have a YouTube channel for that, and I put up a video a few weeks ago where I reacted to a podcast, actually, that talked about the title track from my last EP, Participation Trophies. You can check out all my music either on Bandcamp, on Spotify, all your streaming services, or you can just go to my Instagram at Fully Involved Mark and click on the link tree and go nuts with the content, however you prefer to consume. From there, I'm also really hard at work right now writing what should hopefully be the next Fully Involved album, which I hope to put out sometime next year. See where the timeline goes. This probably won't age well. In the meantime, I'm just constantly putting out stupid shit on social medias whenever I feel like it. My TikTok be popping right now, especially because thank you, based Walmart, for keeping that afloat. So because of that, so you can follow me there at Fully Involved Mark. That's also in the link tree. My most recent video there was a mashup of Ain't It Funny and WAP.
Oh yeah. Oh, Mark.
I forgot you don't have a TikTok account and would therefore not. No, actually, no, I did post on Twitter.
You tweeted about it, yeah. And also, in the 0 hour before it was supposed to have been banned, pre-Walmart swoop, I did download it. I just don't do anything on it at all. I downloaded it. I've never I don't scroll through it. I just my girlfriend and my mom send me TikTok, so I downloaded it so I can watch the ones they send me.
Okay, so permission to flood your inbox with stuff that I think might be relevant to your interest then.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Just send me all your TikToks,
cool,
kids.
cool. Because I think hey kids, you got any TikToks?
Send me all your TikToks. I stay noited, okay? I do that by having TikTok.
I promise you, I'm gonna plug my appearance on this podcast by doing some kind of dance to, I don't know, Hacker or something.
That is how Death Grips is gonna drop their new single. They're gonna do it on TikTok.
But see, okay, there is an alt side of TikTok that would be obsessed with that.
Exactly, and that's why it would work.
That's my For You page right now.
Oh.
I've firmly found my niche, and I'm gonna be pulling from there. But yeah, so that's the kind of content you can look forward to that I've been doing lately. Also, another thing that is the only way I make money now, is that because don't have job, because demic, is that is my Discog store be popping too.
Yes. I think you promoted that last time. Go support this man and buy his music. God damn it!
That said, a couple developments. One, just today, actually, I changed the username on it. It was Spin It Reviews with 2 S's before. It was the last remaining Spin It Reviews branding. For some reason, I thought I couldn't change the username. I don't know why, but as of today, it is Fully Involved Records.
Hey.
Yeah, so you just go to discogs.com / I think seller / Fully Involved Records. We can put in the show notes, and a lot of stuff, mostly real cheap. And it might look weird right now because my dad gave me his old girlfriend's dad's collection of shellac 78s from the 20s and 40s. So I got a couple dozen of those on there now.
Mark, you are the most interesting record salesman I've ever seen on the internet. No, to be real though, like, support this man, buy the records he's selling, buy the music he makes himself. Just give him all of your love. He's a wholesome guy. I love having him on the show. I love working with him.
Yeah, and I do have
he's changed my life forever.
Oh, and I do have normal records on there too. By the way, that's just like if you're sorting by newest added, it's gonna look very strange. A lot of artists, a lot of solo artists followed by and his orchestra.
I will say, if you're a budding rap fan and you want some shit to sample, buy it from Mark.
Oh, that's true. There's this one song called from Frankie Carl and Marjorie Hughes on the vocal chorus called "I'm Gonna Make Believe I Got Myself a Sweetheart," and mood. That song is a whole ass mood, a whole ass bop, a whole ass vibe, and dare I say stan? That's gonna be what I do my next TikTok to.
Hell yeah. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening. If you did like this particular podcast and you're listening to us on YouTube, be sure to give us a like. If you're listening to us on Shoutengine, give us a follow. Do whatever you need to do to stay in touch with us on there. If you want to follow Mark on his socials, those will be linked down in the description along with all the other links for him that are relevant to his needs, your needs, and our needs collectively, along with my socials. Thank you so much for listening. I have been Viral Rack. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. Also, do the YouTube plugs. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow me on Patreon. I make stuff.
Do that
for the world to enjoy. Yeah. You guys have good days, life situations though, and we'll see you. We'll see you another day. We'll talk to you another day because this is a podcast. You don't see shit. Bye.